Hello, Jennifer Raspberry here. So, yeah, I'm in my car. I was going to run a couple errands before I went home, and sometimes doing these little videos and stuff in the car before I get home and everything kind of gets crazy just works out best for me. So, I have been thinking about making my video that has like my why in it. I've been doing my little makeup biz now for 2 years, and I have never officially made a video that's just kind of my why. And I've always written it out and I've talked about it, but I've never put it out there. And I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I just kind of wanted to share my story with you guys because it kind of starts really back before I even thought about a makeup business. And I think what I went through kind of helped lead me to this. So I just thought I had to share and just wanted to share. So let me back up to my husband and I got married in 2003. We knew that we wanted to have kids, but we knew we wanted to wait a little bit because we were kind of young when we got married. And so we wanted to just have each other and travel and do those kind of things for a couple years and then start having kids. And so about 5 years after we got married, we finally decided that we were pretty stable in our life, had good jobs, had bought a house, and that we were just, kind of ready to start a family. And so we made that decision to start. And 5 years after we'd gotten married, and it brings excitement, and you think it's going to happen pretty quick. And several of my friends around me had already had kids, so I was getting to experience life with them having newborns, and I just wanted that. It was something that I really, really, really wanted to be. I wanted that for me and for Ben and for our family. And so, anyways, we start trying, and month after month, I get the news that I'm not pregnant, and the disappointment that goes with that. And at first I was like, okay, maybe it's going to take a little bit. I'm okay with that. Prayed about it, went about my business, but then month after month, it kept, happening that I wasn't pregnant. I went to, just my regular doctor, and she couldn't really pinpoint anything that was wrong, even though I was having a lot of pain, but she couldn't pinpoint it. Well, it just kept getting worse. Month after month, my pain did, and month after month, I continued to not get pregnant. And so they started to run the test. This was probably a couple years after we'd been trying, I think. And they finally did some tests, and they were pretty sure that I had endometriosis. Okay, so they did the surgery for that. And so I thought, okay, so that was my problem. That's why I wasn't getting pregnant. They had run some tests on Ben as well. And I thought, okay, so I'm the main issue. I have endometriosis. It's pretty bad. They cleared me out. And I thought, okay, so that's going to fix things. So I thought, we'll get pregnant pretty soon after that. So a couple months go by and I don't get pregnant, and it's just I'm on that infertility battle. I'm that roller coaster, really. So we do some more testing. Months and months go by, and we're doing all kinds of testing to kind of figure out some things that are wrong. We finally find out that I have PCOS. So not only do I have endometriosis, I now have PCOS. So those are the top two leading infertility problems out there for women. So I was pretty much told that, not outright told that I couldn't get pregnant, but that it was going to be extremely difficult to get pregnant with both of those. So you can imagine what that did to my soul. It absolutely crushed me. To know that I could possibly not ever become a mom or be able to carry a baby. Well, so we continued to pray, continued to seek out help, and we finally decided to go to Dallas to see an infertility specialist in Frisco, actually. And we knew the second that we walked in and talked to the doctor, we knew when we left that God led us to him. It was just one of those moments when we knew we were in the right place. He had a plan for us. He knew exactly what we needed to do. It was just Felt so great leaving that office. So we got started with our infertility treatments. We tried everything, did everything. Did Clomid, did IUI. Then the last and final step, of course, is IVF. So we get to the IVF, and before he can do IVF, he has to check and make sure that everything is clear in there. So we went to check and found polyps that were going to have to be removed. So that was another surgery that I was going to have. I'd already had surgery for endometriosis. So again, another roadblock. I felt like, we're coming up on the 5-year mark of trying and being on this battle. And I just felt like it was one more roadblock in my way. At this point, but really before this point, I started experiencing the feelings of bitterness and anger towards myself, towards God, because God was not allowing things to happen when I wanted them to happen. Let me also back up and say that in this whole process of 5 years of trying, I lost my mom in March of 2008, and then that next January, I almost lost my dad. He had to have a heart transplant. So he was on his deathbed, literally, in November. So the same year that my mom passed away, my dad was on his deathbed in November. And then that January, he had to have a heart transplant. And then a year later, he got really sick again. We almost lost him again. So in that whole 5 years, I lost my grandmother as well. In that whole 5 years, Ben lost his grandfather. So there was just a lot going on in that 5 years that we were trying. And I just still was so upset that God was not allowing this to happen for Ben and I. And I did not understand why. And I questioned and got frustrated, and girls around me were getting pregnant left and right, and I was trying so hard not to be upset with them. I wasn't upset with them. I was excited for them, but then it was like, man, it just stung every time I found out that somebody else was pregnant but me, because I was in the midst of this infertility battle, and it was not happening for me, and so it just wasn't fair. But so we get to we're in the IVF stage, and I have the surgery to have my polyps removed, and then we get ready to do IVF, and because I have PCOS, they had to monitor me like extremely close, because they were worried I was going to overproduce eggs, and in fact I did. I produced 26 eggs, which is a lot. So they took all those eggs out, and then, they go through the process of IVF, which I won't go into all that, but they go through that process, and I had some major side effects from the IVF drugs, and I had to spend a week in the hospital. I was retaining a lot of fluid. I gained 30 pounds in a matter of 24 hours of fluid. So I had to spend a week in Frisco at the hospital, and they had to drain all the fluid off of me. I actually, in fact, had to get drained a total of 11 times over the course of 10 weeks. It was crazy. The first time they drained me, they drained 4 liters of fluid off of me. And so when I first got admitted to the hospital in Frisco, they ran a bunch of tests because I was so sick. I had just 48 hours prior, had my transfer for IVF. And so they were running just a bunch of blood work and tests, or maybe it wasn't 24 hours, but there was a time period that went by from the time they did the transfer to the time I was in the hospital. And it was in that hospital bed that Ben and I found out that I was pregnant. So I was super early, 4 weeks, very, very, very early pregnant. And so you can imagine how super exciting that was for us to find out after trying for 5 years that we were pregnant. It was a huge day. I will never forget that day. And I was so thankful that God answered our prayers. I was like, after everything we've gone through the past 5 years, your plan was so much bigger in all this than I could have ever imagined. Looking back now, I totally understand and see why now He didn't allow us to get pregnant. with the losses that I had and everything that went on with my dad. And we just as a couple were not ready. We thought we were ready, but wow, does the Lord remind you very often how sometimes your plan is not, and most often it's not your plan. He's got one in store for you, and he can see the bigger picture and you can't, And so we found out I'm pregnant. I'm pretty sick the first 10 to 11 weeks because of the overstimulation from the IVF drugs. And we go in for my 6-week checkup. And, they put 2 eggs in because when you're going through IVF, you want to increase the chances of you getting pregnant. So they put 2 in. And out of the 26 eggs, typically couples that go through IVF, they have eggs that are frozen so that if it doesn't work the first round, they can go back and they can use those eggs that are frozen. So I got the phone call from the embryologist that only 2 eggs survived out of all of the 26. And so that was heartbreaking at first because I thought, we don't have a backup plan. If this doesn't work, then I have to go through IVF all over again. And I just could not imagine having to go through all that again because, it was not a fun journey to be on. So they put those 2 eggs in, and we found out we're pregnant. The 6-week mark comes. We go to have our ultrasound, and lo and behold, we're pregnant with twins. And that was a crazy rush of emotions for both Ben and I. We were so super excited, but they were like, oh my God, what are we going to do with 2 babies? We just couldn't believe it. It was just crazy. Like, I remember that day like it was yesterday. And so, anyways, we had several talks about it after, as the months went by and how excited we were. And with twins, you have an automatic increased risk of having them early. And so that was kind of our big prayer while I was pregnant, was that God would keep them in as long as possible because we didn't want them to have to spend time in the NICU. And so that's really, what we really focused on. We wanted them to be healthy and strong. We prayed for these babies for so long. For 5 years, we had prayed to be parents, and we just didn't want anything to happen to them, So at 27 weeks and 5 days, at my doctor's shower, I went into labor, and that was a scary, scary day, very scary day. I went in, got into the hospital, and I was dilated to a 3. So they did everything they could to stop the boys from coming, but they came 2 days later. So they were born at 28 weeks. You can imagine the rush of emotions, everything that I felt, how scary that was for them to be born so early. They weighed 2 pounds, 14 ounces, and 2 pounds and 12 ounces. So they were extremely tiny, and Easton had to spend 103 days in the NICU, and Easton spent 103 days. Grayson spent 69 days in the NICU. If you know anybody that's been through the NICU, or you've personally been through the NICU yourself, you know what an absolute emotional roller coaster that is. It was just another roller coaster that we were on, as if we had not experienced a hard journey to get pregnant. And now our boys were early, and they were sick, and they needed help. And we were just on this crazy journey again. Like, I kind of felt like we couldn't get a break. And I was like, man, God, I know you put us in situations like this to teach us stuff, and to help us grow closer to you and to learn. Like, I get it, but like, I've had enough. I've had enough of this. Like, I'm tired. I'm emotionally tired of going through all this. And anyways, Easton was about 2 weeks old, or 3 weeks old maybe. And when preemies are born, they are born with a hole in their heart typically, and it hasn't closed yet. And a lot of times when babies are born, it'll close pretty easy, and it's not an issue. So Grayson's had closed, and Easton's was still not closing. It was causing him a lot of problems. He was real sick. He was having a lot of breathing issues, blood pressure issues, feeding issues. It was not good. So they were going to have to take him to Dallas, flight him there to have heart surgery to close the hole in his heart. And the night before that was going to happen, Ben and I had a mighty prayer session together, crying out, you've brought us to this point. You're not going to let us down. Sorry. This is just like something that is like, whoa, huge for me, because that moment of prayer together was powerful for us. We prayed for Easton. We prayed for the doctors. We prayed for Grayson that was going to be left behind as we went to Dallas to be with Easton. It was crazy. So Ben the next morning gets on the airplane and helicopter, whatever it was, and he flies to Dallas with Easton. I drive because I'm going to stay up there with him, and I need a car and everything. So we get to Dallas, and they start running a bunch of tests on him and an echocardiogram to look at his heart and his lungs and all that hoopla. And the doctor comes to talk to Ben, and I'm like, the doctor's like, I'm not real sure why they sent y'all here. His tests are coming back pretty good, and we did an echo and x-ray of his lungs, and his echo looks really good. The hole in his heart's not there, and he doesn't need surgery. So God healed him on the way to Dallas. We joke now and say God just needed to get him a little closer in the air to him so that he could heal his heart. But all that being said, the awesomeness of that story and how extremely powerful God is and was in that situation to where he didn't even end up having to have surgery. We went through everything we went through. I really believe for that moment, for us to witness and see God directly in our lives, directly in our own son, that was the most powerful moment that we've ever experienced as a couple in our very own son. And looking back now, I would never take any of it back, ever. I would experience it all over again. I would. So I tell you all that, and I know that was a crazy long backstory, because I tell you all that to tell you that whenever I was asked to join this makeup business, the boys were only 5 months old. They had only been home with me for like 2 months from the NICU. I had to take off 12 weeks of work. I missed a lot of work having to be off with them. You can imagine the amount of money that we spent to get them with infertility treatments and everything. And I just had this overwhelming feeling of guilt. I felt so guilty that I cost us so much money to have these sweet boys. And I just wanted to figure out a way to maybe make some extra money working to pay back having to be off for 12 weeks and then just the cost of everything. So Jennifer Hendry asked me to join, and I was like, girl, I cannot join right now. Like, the boys are 5 months old. They're just now home from the NICU. I'm going back to work. Like, I cannot add one more thing to my plate right now. And she didn't push. She was like, well, just think about it. Let me know, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I just decided. I don't even know why. I'd never done sales before. I'd never done a company like this before. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this and keep up with it. But you know what? Let me just get the kit. Let me just pay that back. And then I'll continue to buy the makeup from you. And then we'll go on. As you can see, the course that I had and the plan that I had obviously wasn't what was in store. It completely changed the track for my life. It really did. Y'all have watched me on Facebook for the past 2 years build my business, and my why and why I started was my boys and my family, and it's grown. My why's changed so much over the past couple years. I continue to do it for my family, absolutely continue to do it for them, but there's so much more than that now. And if I would not have said yes to Jennifer, and if I would not have taken that leap of faith and trusted God in the situation, I had seen him work several times over the past 5 years in my life, whenever I had decided to join. Sorry, my computer went dead. I had continued to just trust him and say, I'm going to just step out there and see what happens. So, anyways, I tell you all that to tell you why I joined, how I got to where I am today, and to not let your fear of failing or not being good or not having enough time or any of those negative self things that you women, us all, including myself, fill our brains with. I'm thankful that God allowed me to go through that journey and to get to this point, and He's continued to bless me and I. Even though through the struggles and the hardships and everything that we went through, He's continuing to bless us. And I just felt that I needed to share that story with you guys because it's why I'm still here in this makeup business, because of everything that this company stands for and stands behind, and the uplifting, empowering, and validating women. It's become a huge part of who I am as a person, and I just can't help but share about it and share my love for this company and what it's done for me. As cliche as it may sound, and as much as you guys may hear that from other MLM companies, like, I understand that because I was in that boat too, where I was like, yeah, okay, and it just didn't really care and didn't really believe that those kind of things could happen to people. There's just, I cannot explain how awesome this opportunity has been for me. And so that's my why. That's why I'm here. That's why I will continue to share my love for this company, because of the women and the lives that it changes, and because it's changed me. It's changed me. And like I said, my why started with wanting to support my family and wanting to give back to my family, because I felt the enormous guilt of taking away from my family financially. And to be able now to soundly give back and provide for the boys is super, super important to me. And so I will continue to share, and I will continue to talk about it, and I will continue to try to bless other people, because I have been blessed. So with that being said, I hope that you don't get tired of me sharing, and you understand my why and where I come from. So thanks for taking the time to listen. I know this was a long video. I don't normally make videos this long, but it was on my heart, and I wanted to just put it out there. So thank you.